also, I remember one time when I was younger, there was this child in the class who didn't speak English, and that teacher told her, well, you're in my country, I'm not going to learn your language. Yeah. So right away, I don't think that's right. I feel like you should bring culture into the classroom, and when you hear about your own culture in the classroom, that makes you want to learn. And then also, I'm trying to think. Oh, I have a good relationship with Mr. Mitchie. When I'm about to graduate, I'm a little iffy about it, but when I'm older, I get an associate's degree in business administration, and I am divorced, but I'm happy. I live on the street with my whole family. And what else do I do?
Tell the force, I'm still happy. Forget him. You look happy, Emily. Lord.
And I still go to church back of the yards, even though, because that's where I grew up, and my whole culture is very important to me.
Fun. Yeah, I'm glad. So, Tree, ask.
Alone. I'm a 15-year-old Mexican Catholic in my community. My family and I are very strong in our religious background, Catholic of course. Mr. Michi, as he's told you, he's come to see me in my quinceanera. It's what some cultures would call, I'm sorry, I'm losing the blank, but it's like a stepping stone. No, it's a
rites of passage.
Rites of passage, thank you. And that's what it is in our culture. So, and it's funny because Mr. Michi came in, he was sitting in the background, and he was wondering if young girls, they come and they do this, and they do this all the time, and I'm wondering, do they know what they're here for, or are they just here for the fame and the glory, and everybody come and see them and spend the big money, pretty flowers? But I knew, because I'm one of those students who asks a lot of questions, who's very engaged and very intrigued, and I want to know everything that's going on in my life. I kind of started like that as a young lady, but it definitely picked up when I joined Mr. Mitchie's class. I had Mr. Mitchie for a media studies class in my 8th grade, just one semester. And when we came in there, things were a little out of whack, but he made certain that we got it together, because he had one rule: no zombies allowed, no sleeping, no nothing. You're definitely going to pay attention, and as a matter of fact, that's the chapter that I was featured in, and it's titled No Zombies Allowed. And what we did that semester is, we together, we went through and we talked about media, and we talked about commercials and radio broadcasting and things that you'll see on billboards. And you may see a slogan and you just read that slogan and you don't know what it means. So what he did is he had to sit down and watch Ricky Lake shows and Jerry Springer shows. And he said, what's the real message behind it? Just because you see a 13-year-old prostitute, do we really care about that 13-year-old? Do we really care about her being a prostitute? Or is it just for the broadcast or that network to make money, or to entertain you? Or do we really care? Because what happens at the end of that show? Does that 13-year-old get the support, or does she go home with 2 flight tickets, maybe $100 and call it that? And what we found out in the class is she just goes home with a couple of flight tickets and thank you for joining our show. She really doesn't get any help. So he taught us to question everything, analyze, evaluate, no matter what you do, because just because you see things, propaganda, as we all know, is not what you see. You have to dig a little deeper. And even our instructor has told us you question everything. And that's the type of person that he made me be throughout my life. And so that's what I was. But I've always been that way. I wanted to learn more, wanted to do more, wanted to understand more, and he helped us be there. But we also said, well, this is the network, and they make these kind of shows, but they're a little, I guess, discriminative in what they do. They always display black people, African Americans, or Latinos as these bad people, going to jail, killing cops. Where do we get a voice? Where is our voice? So what he did is, you know what? We can't force Fox to change what they do, but let me hear your voice. What can you do? So he allowed us to create our own talk show, a real talk show, a real drama the way we saw it. And it made us feel so good. And from that point on, I'm in 12th grade, continuing my life, and that is the best class that I have ever been in. So what I can say is one thing that he gave us, Mr. Michi gave us a voice, and one thing many of us left, especially me, I left with that, and I still have it, and I'll carry it on for the rest of my life.
Hi, I'm the character Ruby. Ruby was also one of Mr. Mitch's students. She got pregnant at 14 and had her second child when she was 17. She lives with her boyfriend. in a small apartment at the back of the yard. And while in school, Ruby was a feminist, and she believes that every child should get help from the government for maybe medication and medical benefits. And she believes in welfare system, and she always challenges her male sexist point of views in her classroom. Ruby also believes that if teachers are more receptive to students, they will learn to love school. And like when kids are in kindergarten, like they listen to what kids want, and students will love school.
Two more classes, and then we'll start our questions.
Hello everybody, my name is Juan. My name is Dave, but I'm playing Juan. And my name is Juan Corla, and I was in Mr. Mitchie's class in the 7th grade. Now, I highly enjoyed his media productions class because he actually gave me the motivation that I needed to create better work. I always felt that my body was a natural tripod, and he actually gave me the opportunity to learn more about the field and actually compete against college students. He actually encouraged me to compete against other college students in my production work. And my production work was actually, it was studied frame by frame. That's how good he encouraged me to become. Now, my parents are, my mom was born in Chicago, and my dad came from Mexico when he was about 20 years old, and he started working as a roofer. Now, my dad was the only one who came close to graduating from high school, but he never finished. And I think that's why he's always been hard on me to graduate. Now, I've never been participated in gang activity. I was never about the thug life, and I think that's because my dad was so hard on me. So, since I never participated, I never had the time. I always studied. I was busy after school. I would actually work, and I would actually shoot film. Now, my neighborhood in Chicago, back of the yards, has many negative labels placed upon it by the community. The community says that nothing good ever comes from it. Now, that's where Mr. Mitchie comes into play. Mr. Mitchie, teachers, educators, community leaders, and parents, they all try to remove the negative labels that are placed upon the community. And that's never an easy task, but it's a commendable task. Now, Mr. Mitchie knows that he can't change the world, and he doesn't try to, but he knows that by affecting as many lives, impacting and having a great impact on the lives of the children, he can start to create a better world. And he knows that he allows students in the classroom to actually reflect on themselves and think about alternative possibilities and think about other future possibilities.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Wanda, but I'll be talking about Reggie, the character. Before I say exactly what Reggie is, his character, I want to remind you all that the book starts with the murder of two kids in the backyard in this area community, and one of Mr. Mitchie's students is a suspect. So this is what Mr. Mitchie is going up against, somewhere between the metal detectors and the miracles. Mr. Mitchie comes in and is realistic about trying to get us to be better people. I'm Reggie, and I'm a black African-American student that he meets. I'm 12 years old. I have no self-esteem. I'm in a predominantly American-Mexican school where I think I'm only one of 5 students that are black throughout the whole school. And daily, I have to deal with racism and discrimination. My mother moved me to this community to get me away from an African-American community in Chicago that had a higher crime rate for safety reasons, only for me to then come into this school and deal with other issues like racism and discrimination. Who would have thought that amongst other minorities I would have to deal with racism and discrimination? And on a daily basis, I'm called names and I'm bullied. But I'm bullied to the point that every day I go to the office. and Mr. Michi takes a liking to me. Now, the sad thing about me is I am a statistic because my mother had me when she was very young. She sent me to my great aunt when I was one week old, and I stayed there until I was 8. And then she got me again when I was 8 to try to take care of me and my siblings. So you would think that I would be on the track of destruction, and I was. And Mr. Michi came in, and he put forth great effort, not just to me, but to everybody, because he always made a connection and found what students liked or didn't like. And my passion that he found out was my love of old school music. He made that connection. He was so committed that each and every student he treated as an individual. He even took the time to take me to an Earth, Wind, and Fire concert. Now, around 14 or 15, I experienced police brutality, where Mr. Michi uses this experience to then teach the whole school in my class that about social injustice. And he teaches us that we do have a voice. We do have a voice and we do have power. And it took almost 2 years for this case to come to terms. But going into my high school year, it was settled. I did get a large cash settlement. So you would have thought with all the teachings that he gave and the money that was set aside that I was now on the path to success. Well, now I'm now going to a high school where it's predominantly African American. So if you think I had a hard time fitting in at the Mexican American school, I had even a harder time fitting in with my own peers. So who would have thought that? I did wrestling, and I took on a job at McDonald's, but I started falling in with the wrong crowd. I started drinking and smoking, and one bad decision one day where I constantly kept coming in late to work, my boss fired me on the spot. And when he fired me on the spot, everything inside of me, all the bullying, all the police brutality, every excuse that I could come up with, all the not fitting in with American Mexicans and African Americans and the white police, it just summoned something inside of me to be dumb enough to go get a razor and go to my job and demand my job back. Now, you know, things don't always go as planned, because as meek and quiet as I am, I've never raised a hand to anybody. Out of all the bullying that I endured, I never fought back. I was not one of those types of people. So why, in this particular day, I decided to go put a knife or a razor blade to my boss's throat, I don't know. But I really thought that that would get his attention. I didn't want to hurt him. But people don't always move the way you think they're going to move. You move, you shake, the next minute you know I'm drawing blood. And I had no intentions. And I think everyone knew that that wasn't my intention, but I wanted to finally be heard. Long story short, I won't see the light of day at the earliest until 2016. I was sentenced to 35 years for attempted murder.
Wow.
Now, in the end, Mr. Michi comes to me, and in this book he leaves me as the last entry, because I think I'm the saddest or the most disappointing to him. And just as many, just like we have success stories in this book, because Mr. Michi did a lot, we have failures. But with everything that was set in front of me, I should not be where I am now. So every time Mr. Michi comes to visit me, and he's only visited once or twice, a few times, I don't even talk about the issues of the case. I want to talk about music and other things, because I know I'm such a disappointment to him and I let him down.
Oh, what an adorable prisoner you are. Yeah, real quick. We got to get to the panel.
Okay, I'm Yesna. I'm Mexican.
Everybody start to sit down.
I was physically abused by my father, and so was my family.
Can we let her? Let's hear her. Hold on. She was physically abused by her father
Until I was younger, and then one day my father abused my mother out in public, and he got caught, so he was taken away. I haven't seen my father, but my mother still supports me and my family 100%. If I didn't have her emotionally, I would probably drop out, because I believe that it's not always about grades in school, it's about being encouraged, and if you're encouraged, then you know someone cares about you, you're going to want to learn. And I think being successful means to be able to care about yourself, and if you have a family and you support them, then that's successfulness to me. What else? One more thing. I want to look back on my life and realize that I did do something that meant something, and I actually made a difference. I want to be proud of my job and not do things that are illegal.
Good. I do think she's important. You all are, and what a good job. But guys, I want to talk to her about Yesenia for 1 minute, and that is she confided in her teacher what her father had done. And because you all are going to be future teachers, I think that's worth mentioning, because you all by law are certified reporters of abuse. So if ever a student says to you, I have something to tell you, but I don't want you to tell anybody, you can't agree to that. You can't agree to that because you will be in just as much trouble almost as the abuser. So you need to, when your student comes to you with that kind of shelter or looking for confidentiality in that way, you have to say, I'm willing to listen, but I can't promise you I can't tell anybody. You don't set somebody up to help them believe that you won't be able to tell. You must tell. Who do you tell? You report it to the school counselor, you report it to the school administrators, and then and only then are you off the hook, per se, about listening to such a thing. You are obligated reporters, not only in the school, but in your community. So if you know of a child being abused in your community and you don't report it, and those who investigate it believe that you should know, you can be liable for that as well. Teachers, nurses, doctors, other social workers are certified and reported and have to be reported incidences of abuse. That's it. Okay. Look at the questions. Turn on the light. Questions light. I want releases. I'm putting that on YouTube. Maybe I can retire on that one.
Well, the camera died midway, so
No, it didn't die. You know what? We need to clap for Linda. Linda handled her business. I want you to know that. She handled her business. She took it apart. She put new batteries. Thank you, Linda. And for me, you've been upside down and not at all. Oh, no good. Good job. Good job. It's not going on right now. Okay, we're ready. Maybe I won't. Okay, let's go. Questions, guys, please. I got a question. I'll start the questions. Ask them, what is alternative certification? And Thomas.
Alternative certification is
Listen,
when
class.
you get a professional from a different field, basically, like say you had a business major or statistics or something, and they want to become a teacher. There's actually a program in Philadelphia called Teaching Fellows that does this. And basically what they do is they sometimes send you back to get a couple ed classes, basically to go along with your bachelor's degree you already have. So they come into a classroom being able to teach the subject they're teaching, but they don't actually have the training and education as well.
And what's ironic about that is, you can only get a position as a teacher being alternatively certified if all other teachers with certification in education are already placed, right?
Yeah.
So what's ironic about it is oftentimes the teachers who get positions with alternative certification are oftentimes put in areas where students are at risk.
Yeah.
Where they need the experience of what you learn in your classes to help them, they don't have it. It's like learning on the job. And you're right. Once you are a part of alternative certification and you're on a job, you then have to do all the things that you did. It's like putting the horse before the cart before the horse. You have to go back, take education course. You have to pass the certified test, and they limit you. You have a 3-year period of time to do all the things that you all did, or you won't be able to stay in the class, and you still have to become certified. Alternative certification. You all need to know what that is. Okay. Next question. Go. I'm calling somebody else. It's 100 of them.
I know, I don't know.
And not just prisoner, anybody. They even flower.
Prisoner.
Discuss 3 characteristics of an effective teacher. Based on these characteristics, do you see Michi as an effective teacher?
Yes, I see, I would say compassion. You have to be able to listen, and you have to use different teaching styles to be a good teacher. And I see all of that in Mr. Michi. He treated, as I said, each student as an individual, and he addressed their issues individually.
You go on. Somebody, keep it going, guys.
Mr. Scott.
Mr. Scott. We're going to take it to the next level. I'm going to start calling you next level. Go on. Mr. Scott.
I see you every
Go on.
But we got an agreement.
Okay, go on. Go on.
Do you feel that Mr. Michi overstepped his boundaries by hugging his students or visiting their household?
All right, I kind of got mixed feelings on that, seeing that in a Mexican community. Like, teachers are almost like the third parent. So like, I feel like the way he was like hanging with them after school and stuff, going to their house, I feel it was a little inappropriate. But when Hector was at camp and he was going through his problems with his sister being sick, and he needed a hug, you know what I'm saying? So I got mixed feelings about it. And as far as it being acceptable in today's society, I think it's kind of like too much crazy stuff going on in the world today. So I don't think that you can really do like you can do 20 years ago.
Anybody can join if you want to. Who's there for you to facilitate? If they want to add to it.
Proved to be true with his incident with Diana, where he didn't even know what had hit him. You know, he was accused of these accusations of intending to touch girls at a camp, and that pretty much scared him and halted him in his whole idea of being compassionate and loving and, you know, caring with his students. So, yeah, that changed his whole idea of the unwritten policy of never touch a student. Because he would have discussions with his fellow teachers, and they would say, you know, let him know that this is not, you know, you don't touch a student. You don't dare do that. It can get you in a lot of trouble. But it proved to be true.
It also has to do with the time frame in which it was done. You know, nowadays it's so much to even give a pat on the shoulder. It can be taken the wrong way. You know, teachers can't do what they used to do and have kids in for lunch. If they're going to do it, you have to have the door open. You have to have other teachers as witnesses. So you got to make sure that there can't be anything misconstrued, because what you know, it's been set up here that like just saying something is one thing. That's one perspective of it, and people jump to conclusions by what they see, not what they know.
Good point.
So you have to always cover yourself as an educator and as any type of social service person. You have to make sure that you're covered.
Because that you once again, you're putting your certification in jeopardy. Yes. Right? Whether you're not reporting something or whether it is believed you've touched somebody inappropriately, either way. And again, when you visit even office at the college, the first thing you'll see a professor do is open that office door. Right?
And even if you're proven not to be, the accusations not to be true, you spotted your career, and you got to live with that for the rest of the time you serve.
Next question.
I have another question.
Okay, Cabria show. Yes.
This is for anyone who would like to answer. How have Mitchie experience as a teacher been helpful in preparing you for a professional?
Good point. Good question. Go and just talk out. You guys this is your facilitator. He's guiding you.
I felt as though that his creativity kind of opens the door for more teachers to follow suit, because it almost has an effect of the buck kind of stops here. Like we as teachers can't say anymore, well, this child has a behavioral problem, so I just can't teach him anymore. Now we have to find alternative ways to teach certain children. And then going back to the point earlier about the language barrier. Well, if you don't understand the student, then you should, we live in America, so it's a melting pot of different languages and cultures, so you should be able to at least speak one other language, especially nowadays.
We have a willingness nonetheless, right?
Yes.
Go on.
And in addition,
Mr. Michi gives me hope. I do daycare, but what you learn is that you can think outside the box and teach, that teaching isn't all one style. You learn the highs and the lows, so you have a more realistic idea of what's going on, so that you don't think everything has to be like this great success story. Success can be just not going to jail and getting a job and being a responsible person in the community. It is a success, so he teaches that, in between the metal detectors and the real.
Your facilitator is called that thing.
Okay, continuing from what he said, I thought the cultural aspect was very important. If you're going to be a teacher and you're not a very cultured person, you better get cultured, because you don't know where they're going to put you. And you have to have some point of reference with the students to be able to connect with them and teach them and have them trust in you to be able to do anything. And he did that all through the book with all different cultures. He acknowledges that when he was a kid, he was familiar with African Americans, but he never had any experience with Latinos. So when he got to school, he was pretty much just flying by the seat of his pants.
This question moved us. Go on. And then we'll move on.
I was going to say also, in addition to that, just like the consistent and ever-changing conversation that he had with students. letting them have feedback on what works for them, instead of just teaching and saying like, well, this one didn't go well, this didn't go well. He would actually ask them like, what do you want? Or write me and make it anonymous. Do whatever you want to do. Like, get your point across and tell me what you want so that I can do better, and just raise up that level of like equality between the two and that respect. Even though culture played a huge part into certain aspects, regardless of what their background was, when he spoke to them as a student, I think that's when he got a lot of his positive feedback. They were like, this doesn't, not because I'm black, not because I'm Mexican, because I'm a student and I have to be here, this is what I want to see.
Let me ask you guys a question, and I need you all to learn from this. One thing that you'll learn as a teacher is, when you get ready to teach a lesson or when you're in a class, one of the things you should do is think about everything that could go wrong. Not like when you're teaching. What if the students don't respond? What if the students don't understand? You think about what can go wrong, and you have a plan for that so you can respond to it and have flexibility within your lesson. To that end, I want you all to explain to the class where possibly his not having class that you all had, where you learned how to be critical thinker and be critical thinkers and be at least reflective of what could go on in the classroom. Talk about a lesson that he did, the music lesson that he did, when he tried to open it up to their cultural selves, and he had them to bring in music. Explain to the class what happened and what profile he made as a teacher, that if he could take it back, he would have done that lesson differently.
Oh yeah, the kid, this one kid, so he said you could bring in anything you want. He was prepared. Anything, right?
Music,
so this one kid brings in a song. I can't
He's either any musical piece, some song or poster.
Right.
It was a song. We had to bring in a song and break down the lyrics of whatever.
And he allowed them to bring any song they wanted to. He didn't know. Do you see where a teacher would say, teach somebody who's in the class would say that would work?
He did question himself, because he said, you know what, they might bring in something that said mother F and G's or something like that, but he still wanted them to understand what you're reciting. Take it in and really listen to what it is that you're listening to.
Okay, so what happened?
He brings in a 2 Live Crew song.
Wait, shh.
So now he's in a position to where he has to explain to the kid that it was wrong, even though he told the kid to do what he wants, and
because it insulted the teacher.
What was the title of the song?
Blow Job Betty.
I didn't want to say that.
I'm gonna look that song up when I get to the crib.
And what made it even more alarming is this particular teacher that fit some of the features of a blowjob Betty, he said, I'm having this class project going on today. Can you make copies of this for me? So she could actually read some of the lyrics and be very offended just by reading the lyrics. He knew what he was doing. And he knew, probably didn't know the consequences of what he was doing, but he was being spiteful in his art. And
in today's world, you'd be set up by an administrator, called to the district office, possibly losing your job. In other words, when you think about lessons that are going to be controversial in any way, you always let your administrator know in your school. Have you heard those situations in school happen where the teacher ends up being fired or reprimanded in some way simply because parents get wind of it and the administrator didn't know about it, no one approved of it, then it falls on your back. There was a teacher, wasn't even anything that serious. It was a white teacher for Black History Month who read the book Nappy Hair to her children. I want to be real clear. I read that book to my students when I was teaching 100 times. And no one ever said, one word was said about it. Maybe because I was blacker than nappy hair, I don't know. But nobody ever said it. Nothing ever happened. But as soon as she read it, everything went crazy. Parents wrote letters. Administrators couldn't believe it. It got on the news. All this stuff.
The sad thing is she probably got the idea from an African-American teacher.
But the it was a mess. So you want to think critically about, and I had to book it. I started taking out all the pictures after that. Nonetheless, you have to think about that. Just be proactive. Even though you think that would be a lovely lesson, it would seem so appropriate, right? It would seem so appropriate to teach because the book itself teaches about loving yourself no matter what, right? So think about those things too in your classroom. I'll let you all have the last question.
Wasn't that big on the evolution theory too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was a big deal. The monkey trial, absolutely. Big deal in schools. Teacher thought he was doing the right thing. You saw what happened, right?
Yeah.
Okay. One more question. Lilia?
Maya, Mitchie used the classroom management strategy that he referred to as letting the storm pass. What did he mean by that, and did it work? And is this a strategy that would work for you as a classroom teacher?
That everybody, you got this, letting the storm pass.
I think that's kind of like if something started happening in the classroom, instead of like stopping the whole class to address it, he kind of just let it play out, and they went back to his lesson. Like they said, Hector and Diana got into it a lot, and he would hear them, curse each other out in Spanish. And instead of stopping his whole class to stop them, he would kind of let it pass. For me, I'm not sure that would really work. Because I kind of went one day after my classroom anyway. What I said, he was going to have to go.
Whoa!
I mean, I wouldn't like it because just because I'm not stopping my class to address it, that doesn't mean that the kids aren't stopping their learning to see what's going on.
The other part I want to add to that is that in his situation, it seems kind of negative, but if you take that in more of a positive role, it can work really well. I want to be a history teacher, and when you teach certain subjects like political science, history, you always get into a debate with a lot of your students.
Yes.
And I've noticed even when I tutor kids that sometimes, like when you get into large debates and everything, it takes up the whole class time. But I wouldn't be mad about that, and I wouldn't go against having that. I would be glad to have an open discussion, and my kids so enticed that they're into what we're talking about. And if time goes by, long enough, like an hour goes by, and we're just discussing this same class, like this same topic, I wouldn't really care about that, honestly. Because I feel like they're engaged in it. So as much as the way he uses it basically is in the negative, oh, well, if their two are going to go fist fight, let them fist fight and let them get it over with. You can use it in a positive format in the sense that if your class gets engaged, like when I had Epstein in my first year, we used to get in debates a lot of times about certain educational philosophies and everything like that. And even at the end of the year, Trey was in my class actually, and at the end of the year, well, was that too, like, there's a lot of us. But at the end of the year, she even said that we didn't fully get like the whole curriculum, but she was happy because we had so many open-ended discussions about everything that she felt like we learned what we needed to learn at the end of that semester.
That's one of the points of the book too. Not just opening the book, reading all the words, and writing about it. Really understanding.
There are some points I have to make because we're running out of time. One, I'm going to collect your, first of all, let's clap for them. Second, I'm going to be collecting your thematic unit. I gave you back all of your tests except for your log 5. Your final is on the somebody tell me, May the second. So listen, on the day, when you look online at your final, when you look for your final schedule, I will be here for your final. Not in this classroom, but in my office. It is at that time you can get your thematic unit back. Are you